Okay, good morning. It's Sara Shebear here. I am a coach, tutor, author, and I'm the CEO of Shebear Connection CIC, which is to provide children, teens with an alternative form of education. And today we have Dr. Isabel M.A. Talking to us. She's written a really amazing book, and we're going to have a discussion about her book and about children and about children's learning. And yep, it's going to be wonderful. Okay, so Isabel, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, it's an exciting topic, so I will probably not be too stuck for words. I think I always looked after children, even when I was a child. It's just probably what I came here to do. It's the thing that's caused me the most distress in the universe and also the most joy. I mean, working with children,
Yeah,
it's just pure food, and you almost feel like you're a little bit greedy working with children because they're just exuding joy. So
yeah,
anything that leads to that is what I want to pursue, and anything that takes from that, I want to propose an alternative. So I have always been researching and discovering, receiving. I'm very spiritually in tune with new information and the best of the information that we already have on the planet, because we have amazing things. It's just most of us don't know about them.
yeah.
So that's sort of my secret, not so secret mission, to bring all that into more awareness, more consciousness and focus.
Lovely, lovely. That is really in alignment with what I want to achieve. I want to set up alternative learning centres for young people where they can come and learn what they want, how they want, in whatever time frame, and we basically facilitate that. So I've had a look at,
With that, yes.
yeah, I've had a read of your book. It's so amazing that it encapsulates. This is the ideal book for the parent who's having to home tutor
Yeah.
and is having troubles at the moment. So let's. How did you get the inspiration for it?
It's interesting because it's almost like sections of it have been written before. For example, there's a whole section on how to work with your child to design your external environment, your garden, basically,
Yeah,
or if you're on a bigger scale. And I wrote that actually a few years ago, but it never was published, because these are all things that I've been thinking and researching and writing about. And it was, of course, last year, enough was enough. The only way I can work with children is in a Zoom meeting through a computer.
yeah,
Something is seriously wrong. So I knew that, of course, there'd be a mass wave to homeschooling, for so many reasons, many, of course, medical or pseudo-medical. And I realized that, hey, this is what I've been working towards. So I actually wrote the book really quickly. I actually
wow,
wrote it in just over 2 weeks.
brilliant,
Yeah. And
brilliant.
I was just on fire with it. And it was literally using, of course, there was some new research, but it was all of the research I've been doing so far. And it was just structuring it to create something that I felt could be a handbook for,
Yeah,
parents. There you are. Suddenly, children, responsible, joy. What do we do? You need to have a way to structure it to remind you what to think about, what to prioritize.
yeah. I have a background, so you said you sort of work with children. I've sort of been a teacher or a teaching assistant in most sort of like schools, referral units, faith schools, special needs schools. And, I have personal experience with a child with chronic fatigue and sort of quite a lot of experience with various autistic boys as well. So, yeah, I know how, these 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 obstacles that we think our child's just gonna be plodding off to school and your life turned upside down.
But this is the 2021 phenomena, isn't it? It's now we're taking personal responsibility as
Yeah,
adults for everything we do, because we know we have to. It's sort of just suddenly jogged into our consciousness. And then we realize we cannot just send our children off to an organization and trust that something good is going to happen there. There has to be more warmth and activity in that process. And all these labels that are put onto children, it's only because they don't fit the particular jigsaw of a classroom. It's not,
Exactly.
it shouldn't be a burden. It should be, wow, who are you? What can we do for you? How can we help you blossom? And so many good intentions with schools, but it's almost impossible to do that in the structures that they're in. That's the issue. It's an outdated structure now.
Exactly. Well, I run forest fun sessions where we just go off and play in the woods and put a rope swing up and build a den and so on. And people say, oh, my child has this special need or that special need. Can they come along? I said, I don't see any special needs. When I'm out in those woods, those children have their strengths, they have their capabilities, you know, and they have their own individual quirks. I don't see any disabilities. Obviously, if it's a physical disability, then it's something else because it's a bit challenging. But, you know, they say, oh, my child's autistic. It doesn't matter. They're out in the woods. It doesn't matter. They do their own thing as and when and how they want to.
That's right, because you don't want to live in a box all your life, do you? I'm in the autistic box, so that means I can do this, and I can't do that. That's just total insanity, seeing as we don't actually truly understand the nature of what we've labelled autism to be. We haven't actually looked at it as a gift.
Exactly. You know, I sort of, at first, my saying is I don't want to be put in a box. Someone might tape the lid down.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just lost my train of thought there.
Well, that was big enough, wasn't it? Who'd want to be in a box with the lid down?
Exactly. But, you know, let's push the child. Let's see what they can do. You know, yes, you know, if we was wild cave people and you had a hyperactive child who was awake at night, well, of course, they'd be on guard duty because they were wide awake and so on at night. So everyone would have their role. And I feel that this is what we need to go back to. You know, it's everyone has their skill and that needs to be nurtured and brought out. And your book actually gives parents the tools to actually help them to help recognize that their child has free will and free choice within the boundaries.
Yeah. What I truly sense is that, let's just say up until now, we've had this idea that we have to conform to society's rules, because if we don't, oh, chaos. Only chaos will ensue and everything will fall apart. That's the myth that we keep reiterating because of this move away from so many reasons from our natural connection to our creative source. And if we just consider for a moment the possibility that actually we have a director within us and it's born from our spirit, from our inner being. I do not ignore that inner being is the most important aspect of any human being, and we need to just put all our energy to enabling it to be expressed. And then you've got the genetics, and then you've got the family into which you're born. All of those things are working together to create certain very specific points of interest and learning and desires and wishes. And this book, I really wanted to show how you can allow that to develop naturally, and it's not chaos. What you're doing is it's a different kind of relationship with you and your child. You're not running after it thinking, oh, I must please it and it's yelling and I must give it sweets to placate it. It's not that. It's saying, I'm the parent, here I am, and I brought you into the world, and I'm going to prepare an environment from which you can choose stuff. I'm going to observe you and realize that, oh, okay, some of that was my own silly ideas just based on what I had learned in my conditioning. And I realized that you're actually much more interested in that. So, okay, I'll put more energy in that. And it's this creative dance. It's not chaos. It's actually amazingly exciting for the parent when you really get into it, of allowing and enabling that innate set of desires and wishes and talents specific to develop. And that's really what the book is there for. It's to give permission slips to parents to say, it's safe, you can do this. There are many different practices. people have been doing this now in little beautiful seedy places around the world, little seed pods of places that have been knowing this and practicing it. And children who come out and turn into adults are just phenomenal, you know.
Yes, exactly. My youngest son was home educated um, due to his chronic fatigue, and it was basically child led. And at one stage, he wanted to build an oil cooled computer. And then another stage, he wanted to make a chainmail sort of shirt. But to do that, he needed to have a spot welder. So he researched how to build a spot welder.
Wow.
So it was built from an old microwave. And of course, it's quite dangerous dealing with an old microwave because you've still got the charge and so on. So he built this,
in there too. Yeah.
built this spot welder, but unfortunately, I didn't want him to test it out because it would have been severely dangerous. You know, within a household, you don't have trip switches and safety things to test electricity. So yeah, we have an amazing sort of spot welder type device sitting around doing nothing, but it's just like the creativity.
So what I would say with that is you need to, you know, somewhere in your chain of friends and family, someone will know someone who either uses welders, is an electrician, or creates welding equipment. And then, because if you wrote to that person out of the blue, they get so tickled pink. It's like, what? You want me? You want what? What? Children and welding? Yes. And they always, people are naturally generous. Human beings are naturally beautiful.
Yeah.
And they'll say, okay, look, let's talk it through. Send it to me and I'll test it. And you then allow the child's crazy, wonderful passion to have linked them into the world, into the wider world. And I love that too. I mean, I've got this whole model, and I know you're working on educational models, but the idea of if we could have these homeschooling centres, that would be amazing. It's a sort of sociability place to come together. So you're working at home, maybe, or in one of these places. But the idea of having workshops with all kinds of adults who are making their own things, you know, whether they're a printer or they're a calligrapher, it doesn't matter. But they make agreements with these children for a short-time apprenticeship. And that kind of real-time experience. I mean, I remember time working with my dad in his garage when he was making, you know, doing his carpentry to relax. I remember every single thing I ever learned in there.
Lovely.
Watching it, because it's an emotional connection with someone who is important, and you take that knowledge and move it forward. It's just wonderful new ways we can do this, and we're going to have to, because we're not very happy with the way we've been treated or what's happened. Particularly, we've noticed a couple of changes this last year.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, sort of that's the whole idea of my alternative learning centres, that we will have experts coming in and, you know, doing demonstrations and so on. And if, you know, a young person is interested in doing a bit more or working with them, then that, the youth can build up a portfolio of skills. And instead of having qualifications, the plan was they would have this portfolio of skills, either a paper one or electronic one or videos or whatever, showing, you know, showcasing the skill. So a future employer, university, college, and so on can then see the full capabilities of this person, of this young person. You know, I've sort of delivered qualifications to people, but, you know, as an employer, if someone said to me, oh, I've got a BTEC level 2 in computer science or whatever, I wouldn't know what that means. What skills has that qualification installed in them? I wouldn't have a clue. So I'd say, don't worry about qualifications. Come along, we'll have a trial and so on. And let's see what projects you've done. You know, what are you interested in? And a lot of us adults have found out, and what the children will be doing, they'll be earning from their passion.
Yeah. And this, you know, this sort of belief in authority, again, to return to that, which was the paradigm we have been living in thus far, that, you know, the BTEC, whatever, you know, whatever degree or any qualification you have, it's sort of like your I was going to say tombstone, but I shouldn't really say that. Let's say your key to get into the next level. And that's just because we blindly hand over our authority to an educational establishment and say, oh, you must be good because we've got this ticket from you.
Yeah.
And yet we know, I mean, if any of us have ever employed anyone, we want to know who the person is.
Yeah.
And the trouble is that we get that person through the door by reading their CV and looking at their keys, their qualifications. So we're sort of going to start to tip that balance of blind belief in old establishments of authority. And there was a government for the last 4 years in the United States that actually wrote an edict saying that skills were going to be looked at more than actual academic qualifications.
Yeah.
Because they recognize that it's about what that human being is about, rather than which ticks they made at a university to get, you know, to pass a certain exam. I've got this thing, I don't know whether you noticed it, but I mentioned it in the book of, I was just thinking, okay, how could I take an extreme example of a qualification that we may be expected to get? And I thought, okay, I'll take A-level maths, which I personally didn't take. I didn't take A-level maths, but okay. So I just sort of had the syllabus there and I thought, right, could somebody, me possibly, but anybody, teach the syllabus of A-level maths by building a treehouse?
That sounds interesting.
And I realized that you could.
Brilliant.
So all of the different elements you could the ratio and the vectors and the matrices and the all sorts of elements of A-level maths, you could use all of the planning, for the construction, the calculation of the materials, the forces. So all of these different things you have to actually think about when you're building a treehouse, but you could turn into mathematics skills.
Lovely.
And, you know,
I love that.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah, I want to do it now.
Yeah, no, so do I. It's just a new place.
I may be a techie, but you talk about doing things in nature or building things out of wood. Oh, yes. I love that. And yes, you sort of touched on something that I wanted to talk about. With these changes, there's this big word, quantum, coming. And now I've had a bit of a delve into quantum education. And that is, again, back to what you've said. It is, you know, if you go to quantum.org, I think it is, it says about quantum education will be, you know, holistic. That wasn't their word, but it was a more sort of...
It's not used anymore, that word. I love that word. And I haven't seen it in any text for the last couple of years. Very strange. Wonderful word. But anyway,
yeah. I use it. One of my sort of sayings is holistic, individualized learning.
Yes.
Because it encompasses the whole being, and, you know, including your spirituality, your connection with yourself or with source and so on. So yeah, I've had a delve into that, and I'm trying to find someone who knows a bit more about it.
I think Nassim Haramein might be a good place to start, because he's always talking about resonance. Yeah. Essentially, that's the essence of quantum, isn't it? It's that this will resonate with that, or it won't. So it's resonance and harmonics, and that's actually the, you know, in that where I try and explain, where I explain to a certain level how we learn and how we have traditionally tried to learn and how we truly learn. I'm going to use the Abraham Hicks phrase, law of attraction, because it is a brilliant explanation of what's happening on a quantum level.
Yes.
That it's this resonance of this thing is causing this thing within me to oscillate, and therefore I am drawn towards it and it is drawn to me. And that's quantum learning. It's this natural understanding that we have structures within us. We have desires and hopes and wishes and dreams and innate skills and talents that we bring in, and it's allowing us and enabling us to find its equivalent, the resonance. So whether it's a brilliant soldering system or it's a treehouse, yeah, Yeah, so it's exciting. It's this massive new field, totally new perspective, but actually all common sense, truly.
Yeah, common sense isn't all that common, and
Yeah.
I truly believe it can be taught. My youngest son has no qualifications, but he does have common sense. And you're just, if you're guided with that, and sort of people point out, oh, was that a good thing to do, then they can self-regulate, and they can work out, yeah, that needs improvement, or and so on. self Self-assessing, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I mean, the argument is always, Jean Piaget, the child psychologist, who I'd love to go back to, because he was pioneering work in the 60s and actually earlier. But this idea that if you enable a child in their younger years, so up to the age of 7, he was saying, but of course everything is shifty. There's no hard and fast, because children are different now than they were 10, 20 years ago. But
Yes.
essentially, if you give them this opportunity to interact in their own decision-making processes with a whole array of substances, structures, natural elements, which are unpredictable,
Yes.
constantly making discovery, they're constantly getting cause effect. I do this, I get this, I do this, I get this. And they're constantly creating these little mini judgment systems. They're educating their perception, and they're building their common sense.
Yes.
Their awareness of self and their awareness of interaction with stuff, with the world. And the more you can give them that, rather than you must do this and you can't do this and you must sit there and I'll bring this to you, that's just insanity, because it's like starvation, actually.
Yes.
It's starvation on all levels, just not the belly, but every other level. And this exuberance, and that children used to go outside and play and run around villages not so very long ago.
Yeah.
And we don't really do that anymore. And it's not about going backwards, but it's about understanding what it was that created the happiness, the growth, the intelligence in that existence, in that experience, and now working at how we can bring that into now.
Exactly. I don't know if you've read the series of books by Anastasia and the Ringing Cedars. Now, I love her way of sort of raising children, is that the child just walked around the woods or crawled or whatever, doing exactly what they wanted, and the animals would interact with them and so on. But one thing that was very moving for me is the fact that knowledge came to her. She didn't need books or didn't need computers or anything. The knowledge is out there, and she absorbed what she needed to absorb. So did the child.
Yeah.
And sort of, you've given me your book to read and do a review on it, which I love, but I have to admit, I don't really read. I basically feel the essence of the book, look at the diagrams, feel the energy from it. And I know when I sort of looked at your book, it was like, wow, if I wasn't, sorry, I'm not going to say lazy, I wasn't listening, but
focused on other things.
If I wasn't diverted off onto other things, this is the book that I would have liked to write. And I feel that within my learning centres, we will be, we will be drawing on that a lot. And if there's sort of parents that are stuck, that will be the first port of call that they need to have a look at, because I feel that a lot of the time it's the parents that have to shift to accommodate the child's needs. And we're all becoming sovereign, including the children. So we need to all shift in a big way around that.
Yeah, and then of course you've got the triggers that the children are sovereign because they haven't forgotten that yet. And then the parents have had their conditioning, and it's that sort of dance until they both realize that they're standing there. You know, the Anastasia books, I came across them when I was living in Germany, because I lived in Germany for years. I had my children there. And when they were first published, they were translated into German and then into English. And, you know, they were written. She kind of dictated them to
Yes.
Vladimir. And she always said it was the cadence and the sound and the vibration within the speech that she'd carefully chosen, which was to activate the knowing and the receptivity of the reader. So exactly what you're describing, she designed it that way, and I always absolutely loved it. And the Takeoff school that I talk about as an example throughout the book, that was the school that is mentioned in those books.
Yes.
That she was highly involved in, and it is quite phenomenal. I mean, it's Russian, so you have to just see that there's a bit, there's Russian patriotism in the videos when you go and look at the Takeoff school videos, if anyone wants to. But it is phenomenal, the kind of humans that they're enabling out of there. And that was all linked to her. And then, of course, you've got, the wonderful Rebecca and Mauricio Wild, or Wild, I should really say, because they're German or Austrian German, but working with their school in Ecuador. And actually, my parents knew them a little bit. So I met them once, and I went to one of their seminars in Germany. And my au pair, when I was a kid, wonderful favorite au pair who really looked after me probably more than my mum, because she was very creative and warm and open and lovely. She became a teacher at the Pesta in Ecuador, the Wild school there. Lovely. And so I was always really close to this wonderful idea of this true nature of learning, that the child was self-directed. And it's just so exciting that now I felt it was suddenly like, right, permission, time to write it. I'm allowed to write it now. There's enough people, they'll get it, they'll understand it. We can get all these amazing examples and bring it into all the new receivings of 2020, and people are now ready for it. I bet you're used to being out on the edge, because I am. I teach singing and acting and now dance as well. Because I could get away with being who I was and working in the way I was by teaching those subjects.
Yeah.
As a friend of mine said, sort of hiding in plain sight. Yeah. And now I don't need to, because people are starting to realize, wow, I need and I want this. I want this from my child. I know that's what I needed when they do their self-healing as an adult. They realize, oh gosh, if that hadn't happened and that, but I don't need to let it happen to my child.
Exactly.
They don't need to go to therapy later on. They don't need to unpack all their karmic debt or whatever. Because they'll just be on an emotional plane that starts somewhere around the contentment and happiness and just goes upwards,
Exactly. I did actually plan to go and visit the Takeoff schools in Russia, but obviously plans were halted big time here.
Well, if you go, I'd love to go with you. That could be fun.
Yes. Oh, that would be brilliant. Yes, you can. I'm in touch with a chap who runs tours in Russia, and one of them is to go and visit that school.
Fantastic.
And I had this because I've had some work experience in a self-directed learning center as well. And I thought, I must go and visit the Takeoff. But I had I call it my higher self, come through to me and say, well, why do you want to do that? And I said, well, so I can learn, so I know what to do in my learning centers. And I was told or guided, I don't need to, because it's all innate in my heart. And as the children come, I will sense what they need, they will sense what they need, and so on. And it will all work perfectly. And there may be mishaps and so on, but they are all learning scenarios.
Yeah.
So, a lot of, in schools, a lot of children are afraid to make mistakes.
Yes. Yes.
But it's those mistakes we learn from. When I tutor my little chap, he does a spelling mistake. Oh, sorry. I said, that's okay, because it gives you an opportunity to learn how to spell the word properly. And he was well chuffed with that.
Yeah, I mean, you're just turning something around, and I don't think there's any. There may be a tiny handful of teachers who are not well-meaning, but every teacher I've met wants to enable and love the children who come to them.
Yeah.
I know that. Whether they're capable of doing it is another matter, and it's to do with them, their restrictions and the system they're in, which is obviously a match to them. But there is always this intention. It's just that we're kind of, it's almost like we're operating with a quarter of an alphabet if we're lucky.
Yes.
And so the fact that you have to point out to a lovely child that it's not a sin to misspell something,
Yeah.
When I work with improvisation, I love that too, because of course it's an infinite array of possibility. And I think it's just you and me here. There's no one, I don't see anyone else judging it. We're just going to have fun and see what this adventure is that unfolds. And this idea of right and wrong, this very linear system, is so insane, because anything that's ever been invented was invented in a playful way. And there's a whole chapter, as you know, about experiential play and the benefit and the power of what play truly is. It's taking whatever it is you're busy with and seeing it from all kinds of perspectives. My God, that's the best way to learn about anything. This doesn't work. Oh, okay, that's frustrating. Well, let's try this. Ooh, kind of okay. And then you try all these, and meanwhile, your sphere of understanding is increasing and increasing, and you're having a great emotional experience. So you'll remember it as well. And the knowledge you've gained, you're going to use in your next, whatever it is, play. And it just keeps building and building in this powerful kind of roller coaster momentum of positive experience, without someone saying, oh, you spelled beautiful wrong,
Yeah. Exactly. And then I was sort of thinking that, he's using a big sort of thick marker pen and he's not writing on the lines, but hey, he's writing.
Yeah. And he might get so excited with writing really big things. I remember there was actually one brilliant thing a professor at university said about, because I actually studied landscape architecture. And I studied that because I had such a weird collection of A-levels that didn't fit to anything. I thought maybe I'd study English or maybe architecture. And then I met this young landscape architect and I realized, okay, biology, English, geography and art, right, landscape architecture. So off I went to study it. And this one teacher, she said, look, really, I want all of you to have a pencil this fat in your hands, because you're all just too persnickety when you're drawing. You need to get a big pencil and start, drawing and free yourself up. And I was just thinking about, if you write with a big fat marker pen, that's a really interesting way of freeing up your mind. So, okay, how big can we make this next pen, and then you can look at the really tiny pens, and completely different experience as you write, and what is coming through, the speed of the writing changes, all of these incredible differences. You can even chart it, as a graph if you wanted to get mathematical with it. It's just one simple decision can lead to so many learning avenues, and we should never limit them because this doesn't fit into this subject. No, that's going to lead to that, and a broader, better, deeper understanding of all the other things. So yeah, we've just got to recognize it, haven't we? You've chosen it. Oh, okay, why? Interesting. Let's see what happens.
I think the key word there is curiosity, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I've always been very curious. Wonder, I'm so brilliant now because of the so many mistakes I've made.
You could just call them mistakes, but then it becomes very feminine, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Take one, take two, take three. Which shall I use?
Exactly.
One.
And once people get understand that, then that's the key. Having curiosity around your child's learning. Or if I give them this, I wonder what they'll do with it. If I if I've got this cupboard of pots and pans and I open it up for my toddler, I wonder what they do.
Yeah. Well, you imagine you've got, a beautiful shiny Noah's Ark you've just given your toddler. And so you think, you hope, or whatever, your expectation is that those animals will be taken out and looked at. And maybe, there's that whole thing of adults making the animal sound, the cow goes, moo, whatever. And if you see your child actually turning into into a fort or a pattern on the ground. Or a lot of people get very kind of disturbed because what their child is doing is creative and new, and it's defying the parents' old-fashioned box expectation. And what we've got to, that's why there's so much about the adult in the book.
Yes.
Is we need to just take that step back and look at it through the eyes of curiosity, through our own child eyes, and say, oh, what is going on? And then you can actually start engaging. Why are you doing that? And that's really interesting. You get a whole adventure and a story, and you learn probably more than the child has learned. But, you know, the child's learning exactly what it needs to learn, so that's fine. But I love that just to step away from this toy should be treated this way and only this way. And instead, you know, I was planning playgrounds with a wonderful company in Berlin, but they were in Germany, called Stadt und Natur, which just means town and nature. And they had worked as Haiti refugee workers after the big hurricanes in the, I think it was late 80s, 90s. So they were working with communities, rebuilding them, helping to, you know, build houses again and places to live and grow and so on. So they were very good people at reconstructing and working with people. And they set up this office to work with children and parents in kindergartens and schools to build their own playgrounds. So all of the resources of the neighborhood, of those people, were pooled and used. And they just had a couple of clever managers just helping everything to run smoothly. But very often they'd have like a fallen tree, big tree with, you know, the roots.
Yeah. Oh, lovely.
They'd fix it into the ground, so no one is ever going to get, you know, injured by a rolling tree. But they have that tree there, and the games that would take place, you know, it was a spaceship, it was a fairy house, it was you know, weird characters, it would turn into just infinite number of things. And that's because they were allowed to put their own imprint on a natural, lovely, organic substance without the parents or the adults saying, well, it must be this because it is that. And only can it be this because it is that. And so it's freedom as well, isn't it? It's the new definition of freedom we're looking for.
It's funny you say about the Noah's Ark and the animals and that, and you've bought the child a lovely toy, and they go off and play with the box, don't they?
Yes, yes. The box of the toy came in.
Exactly. And that box will probably keep them more engaged than that toy ever would.
And that's where we really have to truly recognize, did I buy that toy for me?
Exactly.
Oh, I did, because I always wanted one of those and I never got it. And the child really wants a couple of boxes instead.
Exactly. When I've got 2 adult sons now, but when they were younger, I just got a couple of big boxes, and we spent all afternoon out in the garden making these boxes, painting them, making them ambulances, making them tunnels, these boxes were so many things, and they were free of charge. And I thought, well, this is the most fun I've ever had.
Yeah, yes, it's probably some of my best memories as a child as well, the big boxes. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Very simple things. And this is that I really wanted to point out in the book, how it can be so simple. It's just that it's often so simple we don't think it's a thing of value.
Yeah.
But this is what we're doing in every aspect of life. You know, we're so used to somehow being informed by culture that we must do this kind of job and earn this kind of salary to buy this kind of house and live this kind of way. And when we truly are trapped in our homes, as I think we have been a little bit, and we start to reassess what everything is there for and the meaning of it and the use of it, and we realize that actually we're having much more fun just lying on our belly on the grass.
Yes, looking at clouds.
Cheap. You know, these incredibly simple things we've sort of taken for granted, like breathing good air, or sunshine right now in January. I mean, goodness me, you know, it was sunny, so I just sat there and let the sun shine on my face for an hour. Simple things are everywhere and under our nose to be used for a child. The box, a tablecloth, can turn into a zillion things. you know, a square of fabric that's not even hemmed as a tablecloth can turn into a zillion things.
Yeah.
It's that you don't have to, you know, you can be incredibly wealthy or you cannot be. It doesn't really matter, because children are just crazy creative.
Yeah.
And they're going to turn anything into something else. And just a tiny, tiny bit of assistance and recognition as you watch them, and then sort of realize, oh, I could bring another box home from the supermarket, or I could let the grass grow long and they can hide in it, or, you know, just something so simple, just by having that interest and curiosity in what they're discovering and that it has value. Because we just sort of, oh, they're just playing, you know, just,
Yeah.
oh, just playing. We don't think that actually what they're doing is something. And I think that's a big mindset change.
I think even though it's been terribly inconvenient for some people, having to stay at home has actually helped the family to bond. Well, it would be a make or break really for some of them, and it just sort of takes me back to, you know, parents haven't had the time. You know, in the past, they haven't had the time to spend. They've been working. They've just been sort of just surviving, really. And I truly feel we're coming into a new era where parents will have the time to be with their children, and, you know, or you at least provide that enrichment, you know, beyond the conventional.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And also, if we all spending more time in our homes, they need to feed and nurture all of us, don't they? On all levels, you know, the adults and the children. And the traditional idea of, you know, a home is generally created for the parents, because that's just how we do it. You know, architecture is adult. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that if you have a room in which you're supposed to live, and yet a child is not allowed to climb onto the sofa because it's white and it will get dirty, you have a real problem, because you kind of allowing them to be there, and then you're cutting off their legs at the same time.
Yeah.
And we've got to start understanding that we're all there, or not, but if we're using an environment, we need to be able to use it, not just look at it. And everything we buy, then, instead of just quick buy, use, oh, it's broken, throw it away, get another thing, we now need to think of every single decision we're making. Can I use this for at least 3 purposes? You know, could I adapt this? Will it stand the test of time? If it doesn't, can I use it, burn it in the fire, or compost it? And even, you know, I talk about some of the toxicity things as well in the book, because that just comes in. But it's just this whole awareness shift that we're making on every single level, because it's all totally interrelated, and it's all about elevating our happiness levels, actually, our health and happiness levels. But it's just, instead of just looking at one area, we're looking at this, and the whole interrelation of it, isn't it? Yeah. So that we're benefiting, our children are benefiting, and all the people and animals and plants are also benefiting around us. It's a good time. It's a seriously weird time, but it's a good one.
Yeah. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But, you know, I still have to, I'm in an apartment, so I still have to take the dog out for a walk and so on. My son takes her out as well. So, you know, it's been pretty similar, but a little bit different. And it's lovely to have that permission to be at home all the time. Again, it's sort of like, it's given us a jolt to work out actually what do we need in our lives. 9 to 5? No, I don't really need that, thank you. You know, my theory is that my work is my play and my play is my work.
Yeah.
And that's how I see, you know, our young people will be in the future. And if they're doing their passion, and of course, you know, as you're doing your passion, your light shine, your love goes into the service or the product that you're providing. It's a win-win all the way around.
I think what we've also, it might be worth touching on this, that we essentially know that, you know, this law of attraction that kind of brings all these things together has always worked, because that's just the way the universe is set up. But there have been other, let's say, flows, other directional flows of energy, which have been trying to stop this.
Yes.
This is true. This really, you know, and this is what this is about, isn't it? The good news is that they are, that it's not even a force, but those influences are, they may look big in the media, but they really aren't. They are lessening and lessening, just because the whole consciousness shift and you know, where we are in the galaxy and all that stuff.
Exactly.
So where we have had the dream of, you know, there's that joke about, you know, Bill Gates tinkering around in his garage with his mate, and then they came up with all these things. We know that that really isn't what happened now. But the dream, the idea that you could have a playful idea and you could develop it with your friends and come up with a, that is a really valid idea. It's just, it wasn't actually allowed to really blossom, because some big old corporate company would come in and buy that patent and stick it on the shelf, and it would never see the living daylight.
Exactly.
Same with books, you know, that's why I couldn't publish that book before when I wrote it years ago, because I just knew I wouldn't find a publisher. You know, I went around lots of publishers when I first wrote my PhD. But the examiner said, I don't agree with a single word you wrote, but you argued it so well that I have to give it to you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because 20 years ago, it wasn't on the agenda. But now, that dream is really, it is truly possible. That because we as humans are saying enough is enough, sovereignty, we have right, we have power. I talk to you, you talk to someone else. There is a knock-on effect that we didn't have before. And we don't have such strong negative influences, even if they're trying to suggest that we do. We don't.
Yes, exactly. Yes, yeah, yeah. You know, love, as they say, love wins overall, doesn't it?
Yes. Today is
Oh,
the 1st of January and we're saying that.
exactly. I just we're just in exciting times, and you know, and it's having the faith and sort of deep in my heart, I know things are going to turn around. You know, we're going to live a more fulfilling life. None of this sort of like two parents out to work all the time with the latchkey kids just sort of like sent off to school. No, it's time to change, big time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so Isabel, where can we get hold of this lovely book?
Well, I literally just put it up on Amazon, because here and there I've been mentioning it, you know, just I like to comment on YouTube and BitChute videos when I feel moved to, which is quite frequently. And so here and there I mentioned it on Laurie Ladd. Oh, I just finished my book, and I got, you know, 6 people. Oh, where can I buy it? Where can I get it?
Yeah.
So they came onto my mailing list, and so I realized it's currently being considered by Shambhala publications, and I really would love them to publish it, because they were Rebecca Wilde's publisher as
Lovely.
well, and I think it would really fit into their ethos. So, you know, it's just it's a time process. You just have to sort of wait on them, but it feels very good. I had a nice recommendation from a friend they work with strongly and so on. But I thought, look, there is a wish and a desire and a need now, so there's nothing to prevent me putting it out there. So it's a digital form, which is quite nice for the illustrations, because you get nice color on a digital form. And it's on Amazon, I'm afraid to say, but you know, I don't really like Amazon's ethos, but they're very convenient and very useful for many things, so that's why it's up there.
Yeah. I just I've got, because I'm an author as well. I've got my 2 little books. I used what's it called, co-independent publisher.
Right.
So they've been very good. I just sort of give them the illustrations and the text, and they do all the rest for me, and they get it out there in various formats, as well as the digital ones as well. And yes, unfortunately I'm on the Amazon as well, but they're called the Endless Bookcase Limited, and they're local to me, so that's really why I use them.
Yeah, that's nice. Actually, there is a local publisher I was talking to, but they just, you know, they're not really covering these kind of books yet, because it's still too, for some established companies, it's still too scary, because they know that the old mainstream would come down on them, and they want to still, you know, they were born out of an older system, whereas something like, you know, Shambhala, who's been, you know, bringing in, let's say, people on the leading edge for a long time.
Yeah.
And so it needs to be either self-published, and me loving to do marketing. I love to do interviews and talk to people because that's just heartwarming, delicious, but I really don't like doing emailing lists and you know, paid advertising. It's just I can't, it's just not me, can't do it really.
No.
I've tried many a time, but so I think I really want a company to just take it and, you know, deliver it to as many people as possible. But you know, for now, Amazon will do for now.
Exactly.
And then we'll see. Yeah, but it would be lovely if there was a, I might talk to the Endless Bookshelf company, but it's nice to have a personal connection as well. I love that in everything. Yeah, it makes everything more fun, satisfying, human, fulfilling.
Exactly. Yeah. You've got to have those connections that resonate. And I think that sort of people have had to become more discerning now. And this period of hibernation has given them the opportunity to work out themselves a lot more.
Yes.
That's brilliant. So I'm going to wrap it up now. Was there anything more that you wanted to say at all?
Just thinking whether there's any aspect that I really love. I think I'd like to just briefly mention that in the book, I wanted to explain how someone goes about learning something, because there are just so many things that we, like I said, you know, you have all these resources in front of your nose and you don't realize you have them because we've taken them for granted. In the same way, we just assume, oh, education, oh, learning, we know what it is. But I wanted to create it with a way that was understandable, that we could start to reflect how and why do I do this, or how and why does my child do this? Because once you get that, you're much more powerful. Once you understand the whys, you make decisions which are not, oh, what do I do? Oh, you know, bashing molehills, bashing moles down from molehills. It's not that anymore. It's, I understand how learning actually happens. It's this acquisition, this resonance, this allowance process. So it doesn't matter. I don't need to create the entire alphabet right now. We can just start with the first thing my child's interested in. So just knowing one thing can calm you, soothe you down, give you a sense of ability, because we are taught to doubt ourselves. I mean, yeah, the children at school doubt themselves, but my goodness, the parents, they hide it very well. But we all know we are always doubting ourselves, because just that's how we were trained to be. And so you just need to know that you can just start with a little thing because you understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. And I hope I've written it in a clear and simplistic way enough, because I've been writing about this stuff for a long time, you know, from ridiculous, when you read a PhD, it's just absurd. And I tried to make mine as sort of nice English as possible, but you still find yourself using stupid language, you know, scientific jargon is nonsense. But, and you want to leave that and have real language that is truly understandable. And I really hope I've managed to do that with this. And that's why I drew lots and lots of illustrations. Because that will trigger something. Because I want people to understand that they're capable of doing this. They're capable. They are the parent of that child. And that is the first qualification of nurturing and looking after that child. And if they will work with that person who is in their world, they will find any missing information that they don't feel they have, that child's got, you know. And it's understanding that we have everything we need and we can receive anything else we need because we're open in a state of calm, and you can just proceed forward instead of, you know, panic and scaring and fear, which is what we're stepping out of. So
I think that sort of in this day and age that a lot of parents is, but I'm not a teacher, I'm not a teacher. You don't have to be a teacher at all. You just have to be a guide. With me, when I'm teach, I'm a guide on the side, not a sage on the stage.
Yeah.
And I'm learning along with those children. And I say, oh well, I didn't know that. Let's have a look at it.
That's a nice meme. You need to draw a picture for that guide on the side, not to say it on the stage. I like it. Really good.
And you know, and it's sort of like, it may be that you have a young lady who's absolutely besotted with dance and movement and so on, and very hyperactive. And you think, well, you know, how am I going to get her to do her English and math? Well, you do some research. You perhaps she builds a theatre. You know, we can get in her math measurements and so on into that. She can perhaps do a plan, which brings in her English, and it's encapsulating. This is what I call circumstantial learning. So where you're doing one project and all your English, math, emotional, your dexterity and so on, is all coming into that one project of passion that they love. And that's your key, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Finding that passion within them, which may be quite difficult for some that have become shut down.
And it's that tiny, tiny little voice that always is talking to us. Just, we are so used to just swatting it away. I can see it when I ask them to think of something, you know, for an improvisation, or just I've asked them a question, and you can see the idea appear, and you can then see that they've swatted it away because in their left brain they've decided that it is worthless. And I'll just look at them and I say, I just saw you throw that away. Everyone has this. It's just we've forgotten we have it, and we've drowned it out. We can't usually hear it, but everyone still and always has this little tiny voice, sound, images, whatever, but it's that impulse. And we've got to be very friendly to ourselves and just say, okay, what were you? What did you say? What is it? Ah, okay, that's weird. I'll give it a go. This is the age of starting to truly understand that we have something of worth within us that is there, persistent, always, and with us. And all we have to do is just actually look, listen, and feel it and use it. And tiny little moment for moment, we will be guided to the next piece of information, whether it's us doing that or our child, and both, of course. But we all have this. And we just got to remember, and I think more and more of us are, you know, that's the resonance of awakening, isn't it? It's like, oh, there's something else I was forgetting. I didn't know. Maybe if I did just love myself enough just to take that seriously, just to consider it. And that's what we're starting to switch on. And that's pretty cool, because that's the beginning of every new adventure.
I think that's a wonderful, wonderful message for parents, teachers that are out there, you know, and they should sort of make an effort to have a look in your book as well. Thank you very much, Isabel.
Thank you. Lovely talking to you.
So I'll put the details underneath the video where you can contact Isabel, or the link to her book. And want you to stay safe and stay sane. I normally say that okay, but I'm fumbling over. And love and light to you all. And thank you very much, Isabel.
Real pleasure.
Okay, let's talk soon, okay?
Yes, I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, thank you.